Now, FPL managers, in today's video, we're going to be covering the players that you need to be avoiding with your Game Week 1 drafts. Now, before we dive into today's video, of course, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 15,000 subscribers before the start of the new FPL season, and it would be absolutely immense if we could hit that goal. Let's start off first then with my first avoid, and it's going to be, I probably would say, a controversial one, and there's definitely going to be a few of those in today's video. So if you do disagree with me, let me know in the comment section. But starting off first, it is going to be one of the most expensive goalkeepers within the game this season, and obviously last season's highest scoring goalkeeper. It is going to be Jordan Pickford, who has been priced at 5.5 million, which seems very, very steep for, of course, an Everton goalkeeper. Now, over the past few seasons, he has been one of the best point-scoring goalkeepers, purely down to the fact of who they've had in charge. They've had, obviously, Sean Dyche, whose philosophy pretty much was just defence, and of course David Moyes, who's kind of inherited this side that has been built up by Sean Dyche over the past few years. So again, that theme definitely did continue throughout, of course, his tenure as well within the second half of the season. So there's a lot of kind of, caveats to go for him. He's a really, really good goalkeeper, playing for a very experienced Premier League manager with a very good back line that over the past few seasons has, of course, been keeping the clean sheets. As you can see, 12 clean sheets last year. The fixtures as well, those opening 5, I don't think bad. Probably maybe 2, 3 if they're lucky clean sheets. But of course, that's not where goalkeepers score points. And I've always banged on about this, that for me, the best way to play the game is target those 4.5 million goalkeepers that have the potential to go and get some absolutely mega scores alongside, just keeping their clean sheets. Because very often you'll try and rotate the goalkeepers. It won't quite work. They'll end up getting a mega haul against Liverpool because they've saved, a penalty, or they've made plenty of saves, managed to keep a clean sheet, or whatever. That's usually how it goes. But for me, at 5.5 million, I just don't think Jordan Pickford is going to be kind of value for money. I always like going for the cheaper goalkeepers. And what I've done is I've got the point scoring goalkeepers from last season. So these are the top points. As you can see, Jordan Pickford clear, but Sell started the game at 4.5. He comes in at 0.5 cheaper as well if you wanted to go for him. For comparison, Raya actually started the season at 5.5 last year and didn't score amazing, to be honest. But as you can see, there's some really good 4.5 million options. Flecken, Henderson, Sanchez. These guys all started the game at 4.5 million last year and actually scored ridiculously well. As you can see, there's not too much of a disparity for me to be spending that extra million on Jordan Pickford. I would rather focus on a 4.5 million goalkeeper that, of course, plays for a decent defense, not somebody that's down the bottom, a defense that keeps goals out, keeps obviously clean sheets, makes obviously plenty of saves as well, which will help them in terms of points picking up, and of course on the bonus points metric as well. I think that is going to be the way to play. Obviously, we've seen a lot of players' prices increase this year as well, and I think every kind of 0.5 or extra million, especially for unnecessary positions like the goalkeeper, for me, is going to matter so much more this season. So I think the first avoid is, of course, going to be Jordan Pickford. If you do want to, of course, check out any of the data that I do cover in today's video, make sure you're going over to Fantasy Football Hub. Obviously, when their website is up and ready, make sure as well you are going and getting your team rated for free by AI. There will be a link in the description as always. This is the tool I used last year to help me achieve my top 10k finish, and I would massively recommend it to you guys as well. So like I said, there is going to be a link to this amazing website, and when their website is fully updated and ready, get your team rated by AI. Like I said, link in the description for that one. Now, I think this section of the video is going to be extremely controversial. We're going to be talking about Manchester United and why I think their assets are going to be very, very easy avoids for this season. Of course, we're going to start off first with their 2 new transferred in players, Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo. Very, very popular last year in terms of FPL, and you can 100% see why from the numbers that they put up. 15 and 7 for Cunha, 20 and 9 for Bryan Mbeumo last season was absolutely incredible. To go and get a 29 goal involvement season for Brentford, of course, it deserved a big money move elsewhere. I don't know if United was the right club for him though, but hey ho, we'll wait and see. But right now for me, I feel like both of these players have completely lost their appeal from the start of the season. I never really like to bring in newly transferred players, to be honest anyway, especially when they're joining Manchester United, which always seems like a disjointed place to go. They never really get it working. They never really have any kind of good solid starts during seasons. It's just not a club I would want to see, you know, a Bryan Mbeumo or a Cunha go to. I feel if Bryan Mbeumo maybe had gone to like a Spurs where he's back under his old manager, I think I probably would have been a lot more excited about him as a potential option. But I think one of the main appeals, of course, is going to be the fact that Bryan has lost penalties as well. That was one of his main avenues to points over the past few seasons as well, being the main penalty taker for Brentford. Of course, now he is the penalty taker. Well, not going to be the penalty taker for Manchester United. You imagine that responsibility is still going to sit with Bruno Fernandes. And you do feel like he is no longer the talisman. Same with Cunha as well. He's lost that talismanic ability. Yes, he'll probably still be very, very good and probably score quite well this season. But the main appeal of going for these two last year was the fact that they were the main men for their two teams. Anytime Brentford or Wolves, of course, got those good fixtures, it was time to go for these boys. But I think now they've just lost some of that appeal for me personally. And I think with their hike in prices as well, probably not going to be two players I'm going to be selecting on my game week 1 drafts. I definitely think further down the season, if of course Manchester United do look good and obviously have decent options and decent fixtures, then maybe that is going to be the period where we do play it. The same theme, of course, runs through with Bruno Fernandes as well. Again, another player that has seen a price increase all the way up to 9 million. And I just don't think the United fixtures, as you can see on screen, Arsenal, Fulham, Burnley, City and Chelsea is investable for me personally. You're obviously playing, you know, 3 of the top 5 there. Fulham, a very, very tricky side. I never really know what to do. The only, I would say, winnable fixture or definite 100% guaranteed fixture there is, of course, going to be the Burnley at home fixture. I think that's just a win. That is just an easy win. But for me, Bruno Fernandes, again, might see some kind of role change with, of course, Cunha now joining. They've got Ahmad. They've got, you know, Mbeumo. They've got all these players, and I'm not 100% sure how it's going to look as well and where Bruno is going to be playing. Is he going to be playing a little bit deeper? Is he going to be playing further forward within this system? I'm not 100% convinced on him as an asset as well, especially for 9 million. I think you can go and get yourself a Florian Wirtz, who plays for Liverpool, who are going to be one of the best attacks in the league. If you look at the 11-5 data and, of course, the expected goals created last season, you will see Liverpool towards the top of those lists as well. And I would rather invest in that attack. And again, I think there's so many better players under that price playing for better teams, guaranteed probably the kind of more advanced positions as well, with better fixtures on paper, that just for me don't feel like worth investing in Manchester United. Again, I'm not saying United players are not going to be investable at any point this season. There definitely will be periods where, of course, they might have a double game week, or the fixtures might look really good, or they might surprise us at the start of this season. But for right now, with those opening 5 fixtures, as you can see on screen, just doesn't feel like kind of investable to me as well. And if we look at the XG created as well last season, you can see that United not really doing that well. They're kind of towards the bottom half of this mid-table bracket here, you know, kind of hanging around the Fulhams, the West Hams, the Nottingham Forest, the Wolves. These teams didn't score hatfuls of goals, did they, last season? They're not like investable teams, and if you were going to go for one of those teams with a player, it would usually be their talisman. So it would be Bowen, it would be Wood, it would be Cunha, those guys that, you know, if that team is going to score, I guarantee it's probably got some sort of their involvement in it. I just don't, like I said, feel like United right now feels like the best time to invest in this side, with, of course, their players getting price increases, unsure around what tactical formations and positions they're going to be playing. So for me, I think those 3 players are very easy avoids as well. Moving on to our next player, and it is going to be kind of sticking with the Brentford theme. It is going to be Yoan Vissa. Now, I think if he stays at Brentford, I definitely think I will be considering him at some point this season. The guy was a goals magnet again. Of course, he has lost his main partner in crime, but I don't worry too much about that with Brentford. They're one of those teams that can just kind of recreate players. For years now, they just continually sell their best players every single season and somehow still manage to, you know, get better, remain within the Premier League, and still be decent value in terms of some of their assets as well. And I definitely think if Vissa stays, he is, of course, going to fit that model as well. And I think for 7.5 million, probably about right for considering what he managed to do last season. Of course, 18 goals, 6 assists. Very, very good season for him, and one of my favourite players to own for large parts of the campaign. Of course, the worry with him, though, is the kind of rumblings of transfer rumours. You know, there's talks of Spurs interested in him. I've seen, you know, reports that Newcastle are also looking in him. For me personally, I think when I see a player like that is, of course, you know, murmurs of him potentially moving, and the fact that he's going to be entering the final year of his contract, plus you factor in what Brentford's kind of model is, where they do just sell their players for profit, you're looking at all that thinking, he's either going to go one of two ways. He's going to sign a new contract at Brentford and remain, and I think at that point he will become an option. Either that or they're going to sell him. They're just going to sell him straight out to Newcastle or Spurs, whoever gets probably the highest bidder. And then at that point you think, does he then become a second string striker behind Alexander Isak, or is he competing for minutes with Dominic Solanke? And at that point he doesn't become a good option at 7.5 at all, unless of course there are major injuries for those two ones. So if, like I said, Vissa stays, he's going to be a great option this season. If he goes, definitely an easy avoid. And I think with that transfer speculation heading into game week 1, for me personally, would be avoiding him from any of my drafts. Let's move on to the next player then. We're going to talk about another new transfer. It is going to be Ryan Aït-Nouri. Of course, had a mega price increase this season, up from 4.5 to 6 million for Manchester City. Now I get, City are one of the best defences in the league and have been for numerous years now, but 6 million for a heavily rotated wrist player, like, man, unless we see maybe like 5 or 6 consistent starts from him, like I said, I do just think he is going to be a very easy avoid for the upcoming season, especially with our game week 1 drafts. I don't think you want to be picking those players where there are a little bit of kind of doubt of whether or not he's actually going to fit in there. Of course, Gvardiol can fit in there, and we know how prolific he's been within that role. So I do think when he gets the minutes, he is going to be a very interesting option. But at 6 million, I just don't think it's going to be worth that gamble. You've got so many kind of nailed players, and I think there's probably more interesting risk to take around that 6 million price bracket. Of course, you've got Cucurella coming in at that price point. You've got Saliba. You've got Gvardiol, who I would say is definitely more nailed than Ryan Aït-Nouri is going to be as well. So I would much prefer to go for, of course, Gvardiol within that position. Saliba, Gabriel, so many better options where I think their minutes are a lot more secure, and I don't think you need to take that risk on Ryan Aït-Nouri with your game week 1 drafts. Let's move on then. Let's kind of stick with the defensive theme then. It is going to be Nottingham Forest. Again, 2 of their very, very high scoring assets from last season, Murillo and Milenkovic. A lot of people have, of course, been bigging up Murillo as well with the new defensive contributions, actions, and obviously suggesting that he's going to be one of those players that is going to score exceptionally well with that. And I think FPL have probably priced him kind of, with that in mind this season. A massive boost up from 4.5 to 5.5. Same with Milenkovic as well. Big increases for the Nottingham Forest defenders. Now, of course, the fixtures, they're quite good. They're quite good. A lot of us in the mock drafts were looking at potentially trying to fiddle around and get a 4.5 million defender. I think now these two have gone up to 5.5. Again, I'm not feeling like they're going to be value for money around that price point. And here is one of my main reasons why that is. This is the XG conceded charts from game week 19 to game week 38, so the second half of the season. And who are we seeing towards the top of this list? It is Nottingham Forest. Obviously, you can see all the 3 relegated clubs, Southampton, Leicester, Ipswich, absolute dog dirt, but not far behind them, Spurs, who obviously we know where they finished, United, West Ham, Wolves, all these bottom half sides. This is where Nottingham Forest defence numbers were at the second part of the season. Really, really bad. So do you want to be, investing in a defence that really struggled second half of the year to kind of, keep teams out, struggled with the defensive numbers as you can see here, and you're paying a premium now for that cost as well? I just personally don't believe it is going to be worth it. So I'm actually going to avoid Nottingham Forest defenders. Now, of course, they've had the price increase. I think if they'd came in at 4.5, maybe like a Nico Williams, I definitely would have taken that gamble with, of course, the fixtures there. But now, with these numbers that you can see on screen, the poor XG conceded numbers, the massive hike in prices as well, I think that makes the Nottingham Forest defence, especially those 2 we just shown as well, easy avoids for game week 1. And finishing up, let's talk through our final avoid of today's video. Like I said, if you have enjoyed the content, make sure you're liking and subscribing as well, as we are trying to hit 15k before the start of the new Premier League season. And it's going to be another controversial one. It is going to be Mohamed Kudus. Obviously, the opening fixture, really, really good for Spurs. I think that's probably why a lot of people are jumping on him. But again, a newly kind of transferred in player in a position where Spurs have got so many good players as well. Like, I think people forget that they've got, these wide players, and there's a lot of variety that they can pick from here. Of course, obviously, he was one of their main transfer targets, but off the back of a really disappointing year as well. 9 goal involvements for West Ham. Speaking to some West Ham fans, they were very happy to see the back of him, to be honest. Didn't really think he deserved it, the kind of money move. So yeah, they weren't too bothered about it. Obviously, a little bit of a disappointing season. He was really good last 2 seasons ago, when he kind of broke out within the Premier League. But last year, a really, really disappointing year. And I just don't think he's going to be worth the gamble. Like I said, there's so many other players that can, of course, fulfill those wide roles at Spurs as well. You've got Son, you've got Brennan Johnson, you've got Kulusevski. There's a lot of competition for places as well. I believe Tell can also play out wide as well. So hell of a lot of competition for some places there. You do feel like maybe a 60, 70 minute substitution as well that potentially could happen with this one. I'm just not fancying it as an option for me personally straight off the bat. 6.5 is a very lucrative price for him though, and of course if Spurs do kick on and we see Thomas Frank be able to implement the attacking style of play that he managed to do at Brentford, he very well much could be a very interesting asset this year. But for right now on the game week 1 drafts, I'm personally going to put him as an avoid for me. I just don't think he's going to be worth it at that kind of risk of minutes, risk of price. I get the good fixture, but yeah, I think last season really kind of didn't show his numbers that he is definitely capable of. So he's going to be the final avoid of today's video. Like I said, if you did enjoy the content, make sure you're liking and subscribing, and the best of luck for game week 1.